The CNN interview took the wind out of my sails. Oh, you telling me that the Democrats shifting right on messaging after winning the primary isn't an effective strategy for maintaining the enthusiasm that catapulted Kamala Harris ahead in the polls in the first place? Are you telling me the long-honored Democrat tradition of appealing to the right, aka people who will never vote for them, doesn't work that well? You kidding me?
Madam Vice President, Governor Walz, thank you so much for sitting down with me and bringing the bus. The bus tour is well underway here in Georgia. You have...
Why do they keep doing this? Well, they're Democrats, so, you know.
Less time to make your case to voters
The
than
space bar
any
pause in CNN? Okay, it does.
candidate in
It's
modern
Fox News
American history. The voters are really eager to hear what your plans are. If you are elected, what would you do on day one in the White House?
Well, there are a number of things. I will tell you, first and foremost, one of my highest priorities is to do what we can to support and strengthen the middle class.
The moderate voter caused this. Hold on. I don't think there's any such thing as a moderate voter. I only think there's a such thing as a median voter. If you talk to a median voter in America, they're not like neutral. They actually have wildly divergent opinions on a bunch of different issues, and a lot of them are borderline radical. I genuinely think if you sat the median voter down and talked to them for 5 minutes, some of the opinions they would have would be borderline like openly fascist or openly communistic. You know what I mean? Like, it's not coherent. It's just all over the place. How? Talk to them. Talk to, like, the average American. You will get a lot of people who are like, oh, guillotine the landlords. And they're not leftists. They just don't like landlords. Or people who are like, yeah, you know, I think cops are all, like, terrible or whatever. But then you find out that they're, you know, politically disengaged and they don't believe in leftism because something vuvuzela, right? Or, on the other hand, you'll have people who are, like, not Republican leaning, but they think that Mexico is invading our part. Like, it's crazy how much weird shit there is in the so-called like median voter framework, people who aren't leaning either way. And the strategy should be leaning into the stuff that gets people enthusiastic about voting for you, not desperately trying to like appeal to this mythical contingent of voters who are right-leaning enough that they would consider voting for a fascist, but might be swayed if you just get a little bit more reactionary on some issues.
When I look at the aspirations, the goals, the ambitions of the American people, I think that people are ready for a new way forward, in a way that generations of Americans have been fueled by hope and by optimism. I think, sadly, in the last decade, we have had in the former president someone who has really been pushing an agenda and in an environment that is about diminishing the character and the strength of who we are as Americans, really dividing our nation, and I think people are ready to turn the page on that.
I think this rhetoric is really boring and really weak, too. I think she should just say, like, you know, he's a contemptuous, arrogant asshole who only cares about himself and is screwing over the working class.
What would you do day one?
Day one, it's going to be about, one, implementing my plan for what I call an opportunity economy. I've already laid out a number of proposals in that regard, which include what we're going to do to bring down the cost of everyday goods, what we're going to do to invest in America's small businesses, what we're going to do to invest in families, for example, extending the child tax credit to $6,000 for families for the first year of their child's life to help them buy a car seat, to help them buy baby clothes, a crib. There's the work that we're going to do that is about investing in the American family around affordable housing, a big issue in our country right now. So there are a number of things on day one.
What about you?
Well, I'm excited about this agenda, too. As I said, the idea of inspiring America to what can be. And I think many of these things that the vice president's proposing are things that we share in values. And the child tax credit is one we know that reduces childhood poverty by a third. We did it in Minnesota. To have a federal partner in this, unbelievable, I think, in the impact that we can make.
You talked about, you call it the opportunity economy. You are well aware that right now many Americans are struggling. There's a crisis of affordability. One of your campaign themes is we're not going back. But I wonder what you say to voters who do want to go back when it comes to the economy specifically, because their groceries were less expensive, housing was more affordable when Donald Trump was president.
Well, let's start.
The problem from Kamala Harris's perspective here is that there is literally no answer to this outside of an explicitly anti-capitalist one. You can frame this as much as you want as like, oh, we're going to combat price gouging or whatever, but the truth of the matter is anytime there's a perceived economic crisis or a real one, corporations are going to take advantage of it by gouging prices. This is not lefty conjecture. They have literally admitted to it. I think Kroger's CEO admitted to it just the other, wasn't it literally like 3 days ago? This is 1 day ago. This happens all the time, you know? It's not like, yeah, it's not like crazy leftist conjecture. So like there's no, and the problem is like, again, from Kamala Harris's perspective, you can only go after that so much before you just are critiquing capitalism. And there's just, and I'm not saying, I want to make it clear, I'm not approaching this from a conspiratorial framework. Like, oh, you can't mention capitalism or they'll come for you or whatever. It's just, it's a little bit too esoteric for the average voter. The average voter doesn't want to hear these like sweeping ideological claims from a president. They want to hear something that sounds like a common sense folksy solution, you know? The average American thinks that the president has a button they can press to bring down prices. And if you present a solution to them that makes it sound like you'd have to do a little bit of thinking, like, why is this happening? I think a lot of people kind of lose, you know, they lose track of the plot.
With the fact that when Joe Biden and I came in office, during the height of a pandemic, we saw over 10 million jobs were lost. People, I mean, literally, we were all tracking the numbers. Hundreds of people a day were dying because of COVID. The economy had crashed. In large part, all of that because of mismanagement by Donald Trump of that crisis. When we came in, our highest priority was to do what we could to rescue America, and today we know that we have inflation at under 3%. A lot of our policies have led to the reality that America recovered faster than any wealthy nation around the world. But you are right. Prices, in particular for groceries, are still too high. The American people know it, I know it, which is why my agenda includes what we need to do to bring down the price of groceries. For example, dealing with an issue like price gouging, what we need to do to extend the child tax credit to help young families be able to take care of their children in their most formative years, what we need to do to bring down the cost of housing. My proposal includes what would be a tax credit of $25,000 for first-time home buyers, so they can just have enough to put a down payment on a home, which is part of the...
This is about as good an answer as she can give. I mean, it's not very, it's, again, it's just like policy stuff. We need a narrative. We need a narrative, you know? I think you would get a lot farther by doing like a Bernie Sanders, you know, the 1% have gotten away with the price gouging, and our policies and our laws have disproportionately benefited the 1%, and it's about time that the American people get a fair cut of the economy. You know, I think, like, people want narratives, not policy. Like, people want policy in terms of how it affects their life, but I don't think they want it in rhetoric, you know?
American dream and their aspiration, but do it in a way that allows them to actually get on the path to achieving that goal and that dream.
So you have been vice president for 3.5 years.
Yeah.
The steps that you're talking about now, why haven't you done them already?
Well, first of all, we had to recover as an economy, and we have done that. I'm very proud of the work that we have done that has brought inflation down to less than 3%. The work that we have done to cap the cost of insulin at $35 a month for seniors. Donald Trump said he was going to do a number of things, including allowing Medicare to negotiate drug prices. Never happened. We did it. So now, as I travel in the state of Georgia and around...
Stupid question. It's a valid question. Joe Biden has not been especially effective as a president, at least not in terms of satisfying, you know, the American people's desire for change and improvement in this regard. I think these are valid questions, you know?
Around our country, the number of seniors that have benefited. I was in Nevada recently, a grandmother who showed me her receipts. And before we capped the cost of insulin for seniors at $35 a month, she was paying hundreds of dollars, up to thousands of dollars a month for her insulin. She's not doing that anymore.
You maintain Bidenomics. is a success?
I maintain that when we do the work of bringing down prescription medication for the American people, including capping the cost of the annual cost of prescription medication for seniors at $2,000, when we do what we did in the first year of being in office to extend the child tax credit so that we cut child poverty in America by over 50%, when we do what we have done to invest in the American people and bringing manufacturing back to the United States so that we created over 800,000 new manufacturing jobs, bringing business back to America, what we have done to improve the supply chain so we're not relying on foreign governments to supply American families with their basic needs, I'll say that that's good
Honestly,
work.
this is a decent response. I genuinely think she could do a little bit more blame gaming. Donald Trump loves to do that shit, and I think that's because it works. Like, I think she should just flatly say, and look, we got a lot done. We could have gotten 1,000 things more done if Republicans hadn't blocked every single bill. You know? Like, genuinely, look at all of the policies that we tried to pass. It's been nonstop obstructionism from the other side. We'll do the best that we can. We just need the numbers to do it. It's that simple. It's good versus bad. It's effectiveness versus ineffectiveness. It's loving the American people versus loving American corporations. It's as simple as that. And we'll do what we can to get it done, but we can only do as much as we're allowed to with the power we're given. You know? More attack dog shit. More energetic.
There's more to do, but that's good work.
I want to get some clarity on where you stand on some key policy issues. Energy is a big one. When you were in Congress, you supported the Green New Deal. And in 2019, you said, quote, "There is no question I'm in favor of banning fracking." Fracking, as you know, is a pretty big issue, particularly in your must-win state of Pennsylvania.
Sure.
Do you still want to ban fracking?
No, and I made that clear on the debate stage in 2020, that I would not ban fracking. As vice president, I did not ban fracking. As president, I will not ban fracking.
In 2019, I
Wrong
believe...
answer. Sorry, you're not winning Pennsylvania if you say you're going to ban fracking.
At a town hall, you said, you were asked, would you commit to implementing a federal ban on fracking on your first day in office? And you said, there's no question I'm in favor of banning fracking. So yes. So it changed in that campaign?
In 2020, I made very clear where I stand. We are in 2024, and I've not changed that position, nor will I going forward.
And this is like the inherent weakness of kowtowing to corporatist policies. And you know, when you become part of the establishment, which is that it just makes you look weak and shiftless, which most politicians are, except for people like Bernie Sanders, I suppose. But yeah, it makes you look pretty weak, you know?
I kept my word, and I will keep my word.
What made you change that position at the time?
Well, let's be clear. My values have not changed. I believe it is very important that we take seriously what we must do to guard against what is a clear crisis in terms of the climate. And to do that, we can do what we have accomplished thus far. The Inflation Reduction Act, what we have done to invest, by my calculation, over probably $1 trillion over the next 10 years, investing in a clean energy economy. What we've already done, creating over 300,000 new clean energy jobs. That tells me, from my experience as vice president, we can do it without banning fracking. In fact, Dana, excuse me, I cast the tie-breaking vote.
Kamala's allowing the media to create a narrative that she's a flip-flopper. Okay, in fairness, she objectively flip-flopped on this issue. She is like just another politician who shifts her positions to suit what the needs of the party are, you know? This is like a kind of authenticity that Donald Trump has always had, in that he lies constantly and goes back on his base, but he does so in a kind of let's say, spiritually consistent way, if that makes any sense. Like The Liar You Know, it comes across as a little bit more personally motivated than, you know, a politician who... Like, Kamala Harris doesn't even want to acknowledge that she ever supported a ban on fracking, you know? Look at how uncomfortable she looked here. Did you say Trump has authenticity? I can lead you to the water. I can't force you to drink, okay? You're free to interpret my statement however you want.
That actually increased leases for fracking as vice president. So I'm very clear about where I stand.
And was there some policy or scientific data that you saw that you said, oh, okay, I get it now?
What I have seen is that we can grow and we can increase a thriving clean energy economy without banning fracking.
Okay. Another issue, big one, is immigration.
Now we're on part two.
As Vice President, you were tasked with addressing the root causes of migration in southern countries.
Makes zero sense. I will never forgive, I don't know, the establishment, the leadership, whatever. I will never forgive this country for the fact that we did not become the dominant power in green energy. We could, with our like manufacturing and innovative capabilities, we could have become not only completely sustained by renewable energy, we could have been the world supplier. We could have literally been like the salesman to the entire planet. We could have had India, China, the Philippines, everyone eating out of the palm of our hand. Obviously, in my perfect world, we would have just given them the technology and subsidized it for free because they're suffering disproportionately the consequences of climate change that we benefited from more by early industrialization. But in reality, we would have sold it to them. And we could have. We could have sold a lot to them. But no, we don't get to do that. We don't get to do that because like half of our political will is completely led around by the nose by fossil fuel companies.
And
Northern part of Central America.
the northern part
Yeah.
of Central America that deals with, that affects the southern border of the U.S. During the Biden-Harris administration, there were record numbers of illegal border crossings. Why did the Biden-Harris administration wait 3.5 years to implement sweeping asylum restrictions?
Well, first of all, the root causes.
The correct answer here that they should have adopted from the beginning is that there's nothing innately wrong with border crossings at all. That was the idea that they had back when Trump was the president. They were like, whoa, hold on, seeking asylum isn't a crime. But the moment Biden became president, they were like, oh, wait, never mind. I will adopt the right-wing framing that this is an issue. You know, look, I guarantee you her answer is going to like, she will not say, well, hold on, there's nothing wrong with high levels of border crossings.
Work that I did as vice president that I was asked to do by the president has actually resulted in a number of benefits, including historic investments by American businesses in that region.
What?
The number of immigrants coming from that region has actually reduced since we began that work. But I will say this, that Joe Biden and I and our administration worked with members of the United States Congress on an immigration issue that is very significant to the American people and to our security, which is the border.
See,
And
literally
through
completely kowtowing to the right-wing narrative. Completely 100% the idea that, the crossings of the border are like an innate problem and a security issue, you know?
Bipartisan work, including some of the most conservative members of the United States Congress, a bill was crafted, which we supported, which I support. And Donald Trump got word of this bill that would have contributed to securing our border, and because he believes that it would not have helped him politically, he told his folks in Congress, don't put it forward. He killed the bill. A border security bill that would have put 50.
The American people are idiots who believe immigrants are the problem. What do you expect? Let me show you a few charts here. 1 second. Let me show you a few charts here from Gallup. Right here. The green line is people who want immigration increased. The dark black non-dashed line is the number of people who want immigration decreased. Donald Trump ran on fear-mongering at the border. And yet, in 2016, what happened? What was the change? The number of people who wanted immigration increased went up. When did it start to decrease? 2020. When Biden took office here in 2021, that was the big turning point. Right here, literally right here. June 2021. Look where my cursor is. That was when Democrats stopped pushing back on the narrative. We now have, at least since the 90s, a record number of people who want the level of immigration into this country decreased. And that's because when Trump was president, Democrats put effort into pushing back against the narrative that the asylum seekers were a threat. Now that Biden is president, they immediately adopted the right-wing framing. It's the Democrats' fault. The Republicans were always pushing this message. The Democrats are the ones who changed. Republicans have been equally anti-immigrant since 2016. They have continued in that messaging. It is when Biden took over. Hey, look, Democratic spinelessness contributing to fascism. Many such cases. Dude, it's currently 55% to 16%. They're not changing that in one election cycle. I mean, in one election cycle, they managed to make it was net positive. 34% of people wanted it increased. 28% wanted it decreased. So we were at +6. And then now, during Biden's presidency, we've gone to -39. which is a 45-point shift in one presidency. And Republicans were a consistent variable from A to B. What changed? The Democrats.
1,500 more agents on the border. And let me tell you something, the Border Patrol endorsed the bill. And I'm sure in large part because they knew they were working around the clock, and 1,500 more agents would help them. That bill would have allowed us to increase seizures of fentanyl. Ask any community in America that has been devastated by fentanyl what passing that bill would have done to address their concern and a pain that they've experienced.
So you would push that legislation again. I just want to
Not
ask
only
about
push it,
Fentanyl is not primarily brought through by undocumented immigrants. It's brought over by legal citizens. Why would a multi-billion-dollar drug trade rely on undocumented asylum seekers scampering over the border when you could just have, like, businesses run it? Like, why on earth would you do that? I'm going to hide my fentanyl on somebody who is going to be hunted by Border Patrol, and if they get caught, their whole, like, all their possessions are going to be seized, you know?
I will make sure that it comes to my desk and I would sign it.
just one other question about something that you said in 2019 when you first ran. There was a debate. You raised your hand when asked whether or not the border should be decriminalized. Do you still believe that?
I believe there should be consequence. We have laws.
The consequences of being inconsistent. What does that even mean? I don't know. But it means they're willing to sound left when Trump is the president and Trump is the one, presiding over the asylum seekers. And now that Biden is, they shift right.
That have to be followed and enforced, that address and deal with people who cross our border illegally, and there should be consequence. And let's be clear, in this race, I'm the only person who has prosecuted transnational criminal organizations who traffic in guns, drugs, and human beings. I'm the only person in this race who actually served a border state as Attorney General to enforce.
Weak answer, dude. Hey, what did this previous thing you said mean? I don't know, but here's my, campaign stump speech about how I was an attorney general.
Enforce our laws, and I would enforce our laws as president going forward. I recognize the problem.
Generally speaking, how should voters look at some of the changes that you've made, that you've explained some of here in your policy? Is it because you have more experience now and you've learned more about the information? Is it because you were running for president in a Democratic primary? And should they feel comfortable and confident that what you're saying now is going to be your policy moving forward?
Dana, I think the most important and most significant aspect of my policy perspective and decisions is my values have not changed. You mentioned the Green New Deal. I have always believed, and I have worked on it, that the climate crisis is real, that it is an urgent matter to which we should apply metrics that include holding ourselves to deadlines around time. We did that with the Inflation Reduction Act. We have set goals for the United States of America and by extension the globe around when we should meet certain standards for reduction of greenhouse gas emissions, as an example. That value has not changed. My value around what we need to do to secure our border, that value has not changed. I spent 2 terms as the Attorney General of California prosecuting transnational criminal organizations, violations of American laws regarding the passage
This is why you need a narrative, dude. If you're asked, as a politician, you are going to be asked questions to which there's no easy answer because being in politics means compromise no matter what. You need a narrative to default to. You can't just return to talking for the 4th time about things you did 20 years ago. No one cares. Nobody cares.
Legal passage of guns, drugs, and human beings across our border. My values have not changed. So that is the reality of it. And 4 years of being vice president, I'll tell you, one of the aspects to your point is traveling the country extensively. I mean, I'm here in Georgia. I think somebody told me 17 times since I've been vice president in Georgia alone. I believe it is important to build consensus. And it is important to find a common place of understanding of where we can actually solve problems.
On that note, you had a lot of Republican speakers at the convention. Will you appoint a Republican to your cabinet?
We saw this.
Yes, I would.
I still think that this segment, this bit about having a Republican in your cabinet in and of itself is not necessarily bad. I think in the context of the broader of the broader interview, it looks worse, but I think that in a vacuum, this bit in itself is like the only reasonable thing you could say.
Anyone
Yes,
in
I
mind?
would. No one in particular in mind. We got 68 days to go with this election, so I'm not putting the cart before the horse. But I would. I think it's really important. I have spent my career inviting diversity of opinion. I think it's important to have people at the table when some of the most important decisions are being made that have different views, different experiences. And I think it would be to the benefit of the American public to have a member of my cabinet who was a Republican.
I want to ask you about your opponent,
Still part
Donald
two.
Trump.
Okay.
I was a little bit surprised. People might be surprised to hear that you have never interacted with him, met him face to face. That's going to change soon. But what I want to ask you about is what he said last month. He suggested that you happened to turn black recently for political purposes, questioning a core part of your identity.
Yeah.
Any?
Same old tired playbook. Next question, please.
That's it?
That's it.
Okay. Let's talk about some foreign policy issues that would be on your.
Do I like that? I guess I do. Yeah, I guess so. I guess laughing it off is probably, yeah, I think laughing it off is probably better than like an attempt to actually engage with it. Maybe being a little bit more contemptuous, I feel. Like what does that even mean? He's lost his mind. What is he talking about? Like, I don't know. But yeah.
Your plate if you become commander-in-chief. President Biden has tried unsuccessfully to end the war between Israel and Hamas in Gaza. He's been doing it for months and months, along with you. Would you do anything differently? For example, would you withhold some U.S. weapons shipments to Israel? That's what a lot of people on the progressive left want you to do.
I know how this is going to go.
Let me be very clear. I am unequivocal and unwavering in my commitment to Israel's defense and its ability to defend itself. And that's not going to change. But let's take a step back. October 7, 1,200 people were massacred.
Is that true? This is the first I'm hearing about it.
Many young people who were simply attending a music festival.
Really?
Women
is that
were
true?
horribly raped.
Okay.
As I said then, I say today, Israel has a right to defend itself. We would.
Okay.
And how it does so matters. Far too many innocent Palestinians have been killed. And
Interesting how we say the number of people with October 7th, but rarely do Democrats say the number of people with the Gazans, right? Like, because then it makes it really starkly clear how different the scale is, right? They're like, yeah, many have been killed. I'm thinking more in the lines of like tens of thousands. Many is a very broad, it's a wide, range.
we have got to get a deal done. We were in Doha. We have to get a deal done. This war must end.
In the meantime-
And we must get a deal that is about getting the hostages out. I've met with the families of the American hostages.
Like
Let's
5
get the
hostages.
hostages out. Let's get the ceasefire done.
But no change in policy in terms of arms and so forth.
No, we have to get a deal done. Dana, we have to get a deal.
How are you going to get a deal done when Netanyahu is openly antagonistic to any deal being done and won't listen to anything that we say, and the only leverage we have over them is the weapons that we give them that they rely on for their defense? What do we do? This is going to happen forever. I still remember all the liberals like on October 8th being like, this isn't a real issue. No one's going to care about this.
Deal done. When you look at
Bring back
the
Reagan.
significance of this to the families, to the people who are living in that region, a deal is not only the right thing to do to end this war, but will unlock so much of what must happen next. I remain committed since I've been on October 8 to what we must do to work toward a two-state solution,
Which Netanyahu is openly antagonistic to. So what are you going to do?
where Israel is secure, and in equal measure, the Palestinians have security and self-determination and dignity.
Oh, part
Governor
3.
Walz, the country is just starting to get to know you. I want to ask you a question about how you've described your service in the National Guard. You said
really
that you
are-
carried
we are
weapons
really,
in
like,
war, but you
On the road to getting completely fucked by Netanyahu. Dude's going to like, and it's going to be like November 2nd or something. And he's going to launch missiles into Beirut, like 1,000 of them. It's going to suck, man. Oh God, we have like hinged our political stability on a fascist madman who wants Trump to win, like objectively wants Trump to win. The October surprises Israel declaring war. It's going to be like the Super Friends. Israel is going to launch an attack on Beirut in late October. Saudi Arabia is going to crank the big dial that says make American tax or gas prices higher. And Russia is going to say, you know, we're willing to pursue a peace in Ukraine, but only if President Trump is elected, because only he has the stones to get it done. We're going to get like the international super friends of the most evil people alive to unify to get Donald Trump elected. It's going to be great. That's a nightmare. You think I'm joking? How much of this sounds like a joke? This is like actually what they can do. Yeah, the Unjustice League.
you have never deployed actually in a war zone. A campaign official said that you misspoke. Did you?
Well, first of all, I'm incredibly proud. I've done 24 years of wearing the uniform of this country. Equally proud of my service in a public school classroom, whether it's Congress or the governor. My record speaks for itself, but I think people are coming to get to know me. I speak like they do. I speak candidly. I wear my emotions on my sleeves, and I speak especially passionately about our children being shot in schools and around guns. So I think people know me. They know who I am. They know where my heart is. And again, my record has been out there for over 40 years to speak for itself.
Okay.
And the idea that you said that you were in war.
Yeah.
Did you misspeak as the campaign has said?
Yeah, I said
What
we
was
were talking about.
Wait, what was the exact quote? Tim Walz, weapons to war. It was like, you know, people are bringing... Walz refers to weapons of war that I carried in war while talking about an AR-15. Who gives a shit, dude? Who gives a shit? What point is that? This was in 2018. He wasn't even running for vice president at the time. It was like he used it euphemistically. He was in the National Guard. He would have done like weapon drills all the time. Like, it is a weapon of war, even if he never carried it to war. What if he like served in Afghanistan but never fired at someone else? Would you still say that he was in war? Like, what would you say if he deployed to a base in Iraq? Would you say that he carried in war even though we're not at war with Iraq, and you can be in a base in Iraq without participating in a war because we're not at war with Iraq currently? Like, like what is that? Like, oh, I carried it to war. I'm sorry, sir. Technically, we weren't actually engaged in war. We were engaged in extra military combat operations at the time. It's stupid technicality.
But in this
bullshit.
case, this was after a school shooting. The ideas of carrying these weapons of war. And my wife, the English teacher, told me my grammar is not always correct. But again, if it's not this, it's an attack on my children for showing love for me, or it's an attack on my dog. I'm not going to do that. And the one thing I'll never do is I'll never demean another member's service in any way. I never have, and I never will.
One other question, because again, this is all new.
Yeah.
I mean, this was not, however many days ago, this was not on either of your bingo cards, especially yours. You had to clarify that you had said that you and your wife used IVF, but it turned out you used a different kind of fertility in order to have children. And then when you ran for Congress in 2006, your campaign repeatedly made false statements about a 1995 arrest for
Oh my
drunk
God.
and reckless driving.
Man, this CNN really lining it up today, huh? You know, you can really tell that they it's really like the difference between real journalism and this, where a real journalist would seek to find the truth, and this is just, let's go through all the talking points, you know? Like, a real journalistic organization would ask. I think the questions directed towards Kamala Harris were real. I think that for the most part, those were like questions of import. But this is literally just, let me like legitimize attacks against you by bringing up stuff that doesn't matter at all. you know?
What do you say to voters who aren't sure whether they can take you at your word?
Well, I've been very public. I think they can see my students come out, former folks I've served with, and they vouch for me. I certainly own my mistakes when I make them. The one thing I'll tell you is I wished in this country wouldn't have to do this. I spoke about our infertility issues because it's hell, and families know this. And I spoke about the treatments that were available to us that had those beautiful children there. That's quite a contrast in folks that are trying to take those rights away from us. And so I think people know who I am. They know that record. They've seen that. I've taught thousands of students. I've been out there. And I won't apologize for speaking passionately, whether it's guns in schools or protecting of reproductive rights. The contrast could not be clearer between what we're running against. The vice president's position on this has been clear. And I think most Americans get it if you've been through that. I don't think they're cutting hairs on IVF or IUI. I think what they're cutting hairs on is an abortion ban and the ability to be able to deny families the chance to have a beautiful child.
Vice President Harris.
He's so much better at this than Harris is. It's genuinely crazy, man. The ability to respond with like a narrative answer rather than just you know, a defer to Midwestern Riz. Yeah, it's a lot better. Walz also has no desire to be president. All the best presidents have no desire to be presidents. Okay, I've watched Game of Thrones.
You were a very staunch defender of President Biden's capacity to serve another 4 years. Right after the debate, you insisted that President Biden is extraordinarily strong. Given where we are now, do you have any regrets about what you told the American people?
No, not at all. Not at all. I have served with President Biden for almost 4 years now, and I'll tell you, it's one of the greatest honors of my career, truly. He cares so deeply about the American people. He is so smart and loyal to the American people. And I have spent hours upon hours with him, be it in the Oval Office or the Situation Room. He has the intelligence, the commitment, and the judgment and disposition that I think the American people rightly deserve in their president. By contrast, the former president has none of that. And so, one, I am so proud to have served as vice president to Joe Biden. And two, I am so proud to be running with Tim Walz for president of the United States and to bring America what I believe the American people deserve, which is a new...
Be real, she can't say anything bad. Yeah, I know. It's just like kind of crazy how low the energy is here, right? I mean, you're doing this big breakthrough 2-on-1 interview with CNN, and it feels like she's just sleepwalking her way through this.
way forward and turn the page on the last decade of what I believe has been contrary to where the spirit of our country really lies.
But the last decade, of course, the last 3.5 years has been part of your administration.
I'm talking about an era that started about a decade ago, where there is some suggestion, warped I believe it to be, that the measure of the strength of a leader is based on who you beat down, instead of where I believe most Americans are, which is to believe that the true measure of the strength of a leader is based on who you lift up. That's what...
Again, it's meaningless aphorisms like this that really bug me, and I just don't think most people resonate with it at all, you know? I think, like, speak plainly. This is what people like about Tim Walz, you know? The true measure of a leader is a person who lives... Like, no, just say, like, I'm for the working class. He's for the corporations. He lies constantly, threatens violence, and attempted insurrection. Like, it's... I don't know. It's also what people like about Trump. It's just American, man. Americans like direct, plain-speaking, charismatic people. Even Obama did decently well with this. Like, Obama was no stranger to the liberal, flowery prose. He did that plenty, don't get me wrong. But for the most part, Obama's biggest moments rhetorically were him just speaking down to earth and plain. He was incredibly, let me be clear, you know? He's clear. And Biden's most hard-hitting moments were when he stopped with the liberal, you know, flowery aphorist bullshit, and he just spoke plainly. Everyone likes that. Nobody remembers these speeches where they go off about how the heart of the soul of the founding of the America is the spirit of the cause, of the dream, of the pursuit of freedom. It's like no one gives a shit. No one cares. Trump is infinitely memorable in large part because he just says stuff.
What's at stake as much as any other detail that we could discuss in this election?
Because we haven't had a chance to talk, I'm just curious, staying on President Biden, when he called you and said he was pulling out of the race, what was that like? And did he offer to endorse you right away, or did you ask for it?
It was a Sunday.
What about
so-
civil rights leaders? You can just say MLK. You don't have to say like civil rights leaders. You can just say MLK. I know who you're thinking of. You ain't slick. People talk differently 60 years ago, just in general. Speech has been getting more casual overall, you know. But also, I genuinely think that MLK Jr. spoke pretty plainly. Like, I mean, it's flowery when you look at speech today, but so was like everyone's public speaking back then, you know. Also, a lot of his down-to-earth rhetoric was framed in like a preacherly style, which people are familiar with and does come across as down to earth, even though it's kind of not, if that makes any sense. You know what I mean? Like the way a preacher speaks, that like bombast is very elevated. It's very flowery in a lot of cases, but it's a kind of flowery that doesn't come across as elitist because we associate it with, you know, I don't know, like Baptist preachers or whatever, rather than coastal liberal elites. Yeah, flowery but crystal clear. Malcolm X spoke really well too. Yeah, of course he did. You don't get to be the leader of a militant civil rights organization without having a little bit of Riz, you know, a little bit of Sigma Riz. And yeah, sorry, not MLK. Well, they were both pretty Sigma, but Malcolm X was definitely more Sigma of the two, you know. That's the difference. Okay, MLK Jr. was an alpha male, all right? And Malcolm X was a Sigma male, all right? If you can understand, if you can, this taxonomy, if you can distinguish between the two, that was the difference.
Here, I'll give you a little too much information.
Go for it. There's no such thing, Madam Vice President.
My family was staying with us, and including my baby nieces, and we had just had pancakes and, you know, Auntie, can I have more bacon? Yes, I'll make you more bacon. And then we were
Harris's target
we
audience
were
is not
sitting
this
down.
chat. Yeah, I know, but I'm saying it doesn't work generally. And I think there's a lot of information that you could use to support that argument.
to do a puzzle. And the phone rang, and it was Joe Biden. And he told me what he had decided to do. And I asked him, "Are you sure?"
Yeah, is this TMI? That comes across as really weird to me. Wouldn't it have been a lot more personable if Kamala Harris had just like, yeah, I was with the kids? You know, like why the TMI lead up? I don't know. It just seems a little weird to me.
And he said yes. And that's how I learned about it.
And what about the endorsement? Did you ask for it?
And he was very clear that he was going to support me.
So when he called to tell you, he said, I'm pulling out of the race and I'm going to support you.
Well, my first thought was not about me, to be honest with you. My first thought was about him, to be honest. I think history is going to show a number of things about Joe Biden's presidency. I think history is going to show that in so many ways it was transformative, be it on what we have accomplished around it finally.
Malcolm wasn't the leader of a militant civil rights organization. He left the Nation of Islam, and a year later he was the spokesman for the Nation of Islam. That's what I was referring to. Why are you mad at me? Why are you angry at me?
Investing in America's infrastructure, investing in new economies, in new industries, what we have done to bring our allies back together and have confidence in who we are as America and grow that alliance, what we have done to stand true to our principles, including the one of the most important international
Black
rules
Panther
and
Party. I
norms,
think
which
you're
is the
thinking of
importance of
someone else.
sovereignty and territorial integrity. And I think history is going to show not only has Joe Biden led an administration that has achieved those extraordinary successes, but the character of the man is one that he has been in his life and career.
Wasn't Malcolm X segregationist and black supremacist? Yeah, the proper term is black-pilled, but then he got over it, okay? He had his Sigma moment, he changed his mind, and then he got assassinated.
Including as a president, quite selfless and puts the American people first.
I just have to ask you both about two standout moments, aside, of course, from the addresses that you both gave, but standout moments that were perhaps unexpected during the convention. You mentioned one of them, Governor. A moment that you shared, that the world shared with your son, Gus. You were speaking, the camera caught him, so incredibly proud of you, so emotional, saying, "That's my dad."
Yeah, I don't know as a father I could have ever imagined that. I'm grateful for so many reasons to be on this ticket, but that moment, to understand what was really important, to have my son feel a sense of pride in me, that I was trying to do the right thing. And it was, you try and protect your kids, it brings notoriety and things, but it was just such a visceral, emotional moment that I'm grateful I got to experience it, and I'm so proud of him. I'm proud of him. I'm proud of Hope. I'm proud of Gwen. She's a wonderful mother, and these are great kids. And I think the one thing is, talking about the era we're in, is our politics can be better. It can be different. We can show some of these things, and we can have families involved in this. And I hope that there was I hope people felt that out there, and I hope they hug their kids a little tighter, because you just never know, and life can be kind of hard.
And last question, Madam Vice President, the photograph that has gone viral. You were speaking, one of your grandnieces that you were just talking about was watching
That
you
photograph
accept
sucks.
the nomination. You didn't explicitly talk about gender or race in your speech, but it obviously means a lot to a lot of people, and that viral picture really says it. What does it mean to you?
I am running because I believe that I am the best person to do this job at this moment.
It really is remarkable how, like, I've criticized Harris plenty during this. It really is remarkable how, like, lacking in substance this interview is. You're getting an exclusive sit-down interview with the presidential and vice presidential candidates, and it's just like, it's so weak, dude. The interviewer is so sauceless and brought the worst questions.
For all Americans, regardless of race and gender. But I did see that photograph, and I was deeply touched by it. And you're right, it's the back of her head, her two little braids, and then I'm in the front of the photograph, obviously speaking. And
Jesus Christ, Kamala.
it's very humbling. It's very humbling in many ways.
Did she talk to you about it afterwards?
Oh, she had a lot to talk about. She had a lot. She listened to everything, and she listens to everything.
Give you your hot takes?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Madam Vice President, Governor Walz, thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having
Thank you,
us.
Dana. Thank you.
That fucking sucked. Shut up.
Madam Vice President, Governor Walz,
Back to part one. That sucked, man. That was terrible. That was terrible from CNN. That was terrible from Kamala Harris. Even Tim Walz was pretty deflated and didn't have much energy in his speaking, Not any worse than Trump or Vance. I don't know. Why pit two bad bitches against each other? Oh, wait, they're running against each other. Okay, never mind. That's not the comparison I'm making, okay? You can't respond to every criticism of Kamala Harris with, well, Trump and Vance are worse. We know they're worse. Don't put me in the cycle where every time I criticize them, the people in chat are like, wait, I don't understand. Does this mean that Vosh is supporting Trump? Like, we're not doing that again, okay? Do you think this will hurt the energy of the campaign? I mean, it won't help it, that's for sure. Terribles and boring, but I don't think it'll change anyone's mind. Boring matters, Boring kind of hurts. It will deflate, like, the energy of the left, though, that's for sure. Who are more important to the energy of the Democratic, victory than a lot of people are willing to acknowledge. Certainly, there was nothing here for me to be happy about. Nothing objectionable either, though. I mean, saying that she would not change policy with Israel no matter what, or stop any weapons, and it was completely off the table. That was probably pretty bad. Or the border, completely kowtowing to right-wing talking points, was probably pretty bad. But that's already the case. Yeah, it's still bad. So why would it hurt? Because it's a reminder. She can't say anything different about Israel, though. No, she took that line pretty hard. Her opener to that question was, well, let me make it clear. No matter what, I support Israel's right to defend itself, and I will not consider any weapon, da-da-da. She could have been a lot more critical of Netanyahu there. Is there someone with a gun to her head that's like keeping her from saying Netanyahu is being obstructionist on a hostage deal, even though that's objectively the case and it's widely known in Israel? Like, Netanyahu has an abysmally low popularity rating because in large part because he won't sign off on a hostage deal? Like, we can't even mention it. It's crazy. Yes, Farhana Sheikh, the Democrats stopped attacking right-wing narratives about the border when Joe Biden became president. Why don't they ask Walls about Gaza? Because the vice president has basically no influence on foreign policy or anything. You know. Netanyahu already wants Trump to win, Zigabiz, trust me. Then why are they so focused on her not doing anything as vice president? Because they hate you? Because they hate life? You don't think it has anything to do with increase in border encounters after COVID? Nope. American public opinion and reality have absolutely nothing to do with one another. Zero. The reason there's been a shift in people's attitudes towards the border is 100% due to public perception, not reality. If you want proof of that, I think the best thing that you could refer to, I think John Oliver had a segment on this, people's fear of the migrant crime wave. A contemporary term to refer to an imaginary trend, which is undocumented immigrants committing a bunch of crimes, but the people's fear of that migrant crime wave, which is not real, spiked massively recently, completely disconnected from any actual increase in migrant crime. It is entirely feels over reals. Republicans took advantage of this to attack Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, but like the Democrats did not push back meaningfully on the narrative. Oh, if you're watching in YouTube chat, by the way, you're actually legally obligated to hit the like button. How are we below 1,000 likes? Do you guys dislike me that much? I'm taking it personally. Zigabiz, I'm sorry, Zigabiz. I think there are far more electoral consequences to continuing to kowtow on this issue. As we've seen so far, the Democrats have taken nothing but L after L after L on the Israel issue, because as it turns out, you can't capitulate when the issue at hand is like a right-wing framing of an ethnic cleansing being conducted by a person who will, no matter what, want Donald Trump to win. We're in a bubble. They are telling the median voter what they want to hear. No, they're not. No, they're not. I'm not saying that she needs to change her rhetoric to appeal to the left. I'm saying her rhetoric loses. What you're spouting is like median Clintonite New York City Democrat propaganda. The idea that, oh, only crazy leftists would want the Democrats to have a hardline, consistent left-leaning approach on issues, you know? In reality, the median voter wants Democrats to just be a weaker version of Republicans, agreeing with Republican narratives but proposing more milquetoast solutions. Listening, no, that doesn't work. It's never worked. Ever. It doesn't work. People will choose 100% Hitler over 50% Hitler every time. Yeah, if you're running 100% Hitler versus 50% Hitler, you have to, and it's a close race, you want to reasonably assume, if you're like, oh, well, what if I went 70% Hitler? Would that win over some of the 100% Hitler voters? No, if they want to vote for 100% Hitler, that's because they agree with 100% Hitler. You're not going to win them over by being closer to the thing they already like. They already like the thing. You can't be more Hitler than 100% Hitler. Though they're going to try. They're going to try, folks. They're willing to give it a shot. They're trying to holy shit two kegs politics. Literally, though. They literally are. Me bringing out my Hitlerite policy proposal. Man, my Hitlerite policy proposal is nowhere near as reactionary as the Republicans' Hitlerite policy proposal. The median voter entering the room. Holy shit, 2 Hitlerite policy proposals! Yum! A co-ed interview.
Generally speaking, how should voters look at some of the changes that you've made, that you've explained some of here, in your policy? Is it because you have more experience now and you've learned more about the information? Is it because you were running for president in a Democratic primary? And should they feel comfortable and confident that what you're saying now is going to be your policy moving forward?
Dana, I think the most important and most significant aspect of my policy perspective and decisions is my values have not changed. You mentioned the Green New Deal. I have always believed,
weirdly loud to
and
anyone
I
else.
worked on it, that the climate crisis is real, that it is an urgent matter to which we should apply metrics that include holding ourselves to deadlines around time.
Yeah, she's like amped up the
We
game.
did that with the Inflation Reduction Act. We have set goals for the United States of America and by extension the globe around when we should meet certain standards for reduction of greenhouse gas emissions, as an example. That value has not changed. My value around what we need to do to secure our border, that value has not changed. I spent 2 terms as the Attorney General of California prosecuting transnational criminal organizations, violations of American laws regarding the illegal passage of guns, drugs, and human beings across our border. My values have not changed.
Georgia Governor Brian Kemp is expected.
Shut up. That audio was terrible. Also, that wasn't a very compelling interview clip. That's the first clip that CNN has released. Kamala Harris said if elected, she would appoint a Republican to serve in her cabinet. Yeah, that makes sense. Why? Because she's probably going to try to find like a rhino anti-Trump Republican as like a perceived unity ticket, but also a thumb in the, you know, like a neener, that kind of thing. Obviously, like it's dumb, but it makes sense that that would be that'd be like a hit. Mitt Romney incoming. That would be incredibly funny. Gonna find herself a consider. Yeah. Pretty boring opening clip, though, I have to say. It's odd that they're doing the interview together. I guess maybe it's also another thing that distinguishes them from Trump and Vance, because I don't think Trump and Vance could ever do a co-ed interview, because if they did, Trump would never let Vance talk, and if Vance did talk, Trump would like visibly recoil, you know? They did an interview together? Have I not seen it? Did they do the thing that I predicted they would do? With Jesse Waters? Oh, great. 1 month ago. Okay, that's why it's not in my recent memory.
Mistakes were made. They were monitoring this guy for an hour beforehand. Yeah. No one told you not.
Okay, right. This was right after accepting JD Vance. Okay, all right, my fault for not remembering. I do remember a clip with Vance sitting quietly in the background. Trump just doesn't like sharing the spotlight. He has never enjoyed doing that. You know, he would run without a VP if he could get away with it. Oh, God, absolutely. Absolutely he would. 100%. You know they're just an inconvenience to him, especially after what happened with Mike Pence, you know? Second clip from Harris interview just dropped. Why do I feel so tired today? It's got to just be the poor quality sleep. It's got to be the poor quality sleep. Have you seen Kamala say she's going to appoint a Republican in her cabinet? Yes. Oh, wow, what a coincidence. That's the subject of this.
You had a lot of Republican speakers at the convention. Will you appoint a Republican to your cabinet?
Yes, I would.
Anyone
Yes,
in mind?
I would. No one in particular in mind. We got 68 days to go with this election, so I'm not putting the cart before the horse. But I would. I think it's really important. I have spent my career inviting.
Like I said, I don't think that this is particularly surprising because, for one, they're running on a unity ticket, and for two, it's kind of it's strategically and electorally beneficial for Kamala Harris to make it clear that she's not anti-Republican, she's anti-Trump. I think this is bad. So let's talk 2 different lines here. One is the campaign strategy, and the other is like my position, right? The campaign strategy is that if you want to pick up right-leaning votes, you want to scoop up people who are dissatisfied by Trump, and an effective way of doing that would be criticizing Donald Trump, but making it clear that you have like a big tent to other Republicans. Having a rhino in your cabinet, you know, like having, I don't know, someone you know, someone somewhere across the line in your presidential cabinet be like a Mitt Romney type, right? A Kissinger type. Could be beneficial just because it gives the aesthetic of her being like, oh yeah, you know, I'm not even like anti-Republican if we get back to the foundational principles of the party. I'm anti-Trump because he's crazy. Now, that might be good for the campaign. Obviously, the rot of the MAGA movement goes well beyond Trump at this point. You know, Trump is just a figurehead through which a bunch of corporatist and fascist politicians and organizations are attempting to enact their agenda, you know. So obviously, like, I don't like the laundering of the Republican Party broadly. The idea that Donald Trump did not spoil the whole bunch. She did say would appoint, not will appoint. So she did, right? Did I mishear that?
You had a lot of Republican speakers at the convention. Will you appoint a Republican to your cabinet?
Yes, I would.
Anyone
Yes,
in
I
mind?
would.
Would you? Yeah, no, she says what? Okay. The question was will, she said would. Okay, sorry, wait, hold on. I feel like I talk over it and then I have a hard time.
I would.
Anyone
Yes,
in
I
mind?
would.
Republican to your cabinet? You appoint a Republican to your cabinet at the convention. Will you appoint a Republican to your cabinet?
Yes, I would.
Will you? Yes, I would. That's interesting. Okay, so we have to assume here that her language is deliberate, right? It would be kind of insane if she said, no, I wouldn't. Yeah, yes, I would is like the correct answer. Yes, I would. I mean, Jesus, shit, I think I would give that answer. Like, what? Because can you imagine, like, you'd be losing favorability for no reason if you were like, no, I wouldn't under any circumstances, right? That would just be, like, you want to hedge your bets at the very, it's the correct answer, yeah. What if she said she might? Well, saying she might and saying she would are kind of the same thing. Just would sounds better than might because it sounds like you're less on the fence. If she said she will, then my initial explanation for her decision-making, that was what I heard. I thought she said will at first, but then I saw someone in chat say she said would because the interviewer asked will and then she said would. Whatever. I don't think there's much wrong with it. I don't think there's anything to get outraged about this over, you know?
Anyone
Yes,
in
I
mind?
would. No one in particular in mind. We got 68 days to go with this election, so I'm not putting the cart before the horse. But I would. I think it's really important. I have spent my career inviting diversity of opinion. I think it's important to have people at the table when some of the most important decisions are being made that have different views, different experiences. And I think it would be to the benefit of the American public to have a member of my cabinet who was a Republican.
Let me parse that language real carefully.
Made that have different views, different experiences. And I think it would be to the benefit of the American public to have a member of my cabinet who was a Republican.
Okay, yeah. Now that was a dumb statement. I think it's still in the same ballpark of like hedging the bets. I don't think there's much like especially noteworthy here. I think that it could actually be pretty powerful electorally if you had a proposed cabinet member who was a never Trump Republican. Again, I'm not defending this morally. I'm only talking about like what would be good for the campaign trail, because then you would be giving that cabinet member, that future cabinet member, plenty of opportunities to say, you know, yeah, I lost faith in the Republican Party after Donald Trump took over, or, you know, Trump has led the Republican Party astray. It would give them opportunities to be another wedge towards people closer in the center. Has that ever worked, though? Well, I don't think that particular strategy has been tried, but it's something that could be done. As for how much it would work, I don't really know, but, you know, it would be possible to find a Republican cabinet member who wouldn't be much worse on the issues than a, like, center lib pick. No. I agree 100%, Andy. Swaying uncommitted or alienated voters is much more effective than swaying, like, moderates or right-leaning people. I just think that I could see how it could play out, but in the context of this specific interview, I don't think she said anything weird. I think she kind of answered the way you have to, you know? She didn't say, yes, I think Republicans should lead my presidential administration. And she didn't say, no, I flatly reject that, because if she did, that would it would be like based in red pilled from a principled standpoint, but I think it would just be like a net loss electorally, because you'd be opening yourself up to attacks. It'd be polarizing in a way she wouldn't benefit from. I worry this is demotivating to the base. Maybe if people are dumb, which I guess they are. So yeah. She appoints MTG as head of the Department of Education. Yeah, you know what? Go for the dark horse pick. You know. Give them something they're not going to expect. They're expecting like a Mitt Romney type, you know, find some like nothing Republican and give them the Department of Agriculture or something. No, okay? We're getting MTG. We're throwing her ass right to the top of the DOE. Kamala's doing a bad job since the convention of keeping energy up and increasing. It has been quiet since the convention, but it's been a short enough length of time that I'm willing to wait it out another week and see if they're cooking something fierce. I think that Tim Walz has been doing well. You know, he has limited reach considering he's the VP pick rather than the presidential candidate himself. You know, he seems to be doing well with his engagements. And I think like right now we're kind of like waiting it out until the debate, right? I mean, we'll see if Trump ends up actually backing out of it, but it's the 10th, and that is like gonna be the next big cornerstone. A little bit of limbo. Maybe I can finally get in Elden Ring.